The National Aeronautics and Space Administration was born on October 1st, 1958, in the aftermath of the launch of the Soviet satellite Sputnik 1. It was formed by the Eisenhower administration for the purposes of science, defense, and national prestige. The change from many small, private space programs to a unified national program was a turning point that fueled the space race between the United States and the Soviet Union, ultimately landing a man on the moon and ushering in a new age of exploration. While rockets had been in use for over 1,800 years, the idea of their use in space travel was relatively new. Rockets for space travel were being studied and written about by Russian and German theoreticians in the early 1900s, but the American Robert H. Goddard was the first to develop a liquid fuel rocket that heralded the modern age of rocketry. Space was now viewed as the new frontier, pressed into by the compelling urge of man to explore and to discover, the thrust of curiosity that leads men to try to go where no one has gone before. This sentiment was expressed by the International Council of Scientific Unions, who established the International Geophysical Year and asked for artificial satellites to map Earth's surface. The United States and the Soviet Union both responded to their request. The Soviet Union launched the first artificial satellite, Sputnik 1, on October 4, 1957. This had a Pearl Harbor effect on America and shocked the American public and government into action, which led to bigger budgets, more technical and scientific educational programs, and more federal agencies for space research. America now needed to be concerned about defense from space attacks. World War II had forced nations to focus attention on applicable technology and to fund research and development. National security was an important issue, and American leaders had no desire to repeat Pearl Harbor and be caught off guard again. United States space activities were re-examined and found to be wanting. Eisenhower formed a secret reconnaissance satellite program, while the Army and Navy created more publicized civilian programs to create an orbiting satellite. The Army launched their first successful satellite, Explorer 1, into orbit on January 31, 1958. National prestige, though less of immediate concern than defense, was also an important factor. America had fallen behind the Soviet Union in technology. George Reedy, one of Lyndon Johnson's aides, said, "The simple fact is that we can no longer consider the Russians to be behind us in technology. It took them 4 years to catch up to our atomic bomb, and 9 months to catch up to our hydrogen bomb. Now we are trying to catch up to their satellite." The National Aeronautics and Space Act of 1958 was passed on October 1, 1958. Much debate surrounded the new agency. Would it be part of the Department of Defense, or an independent civilian agency? Would it be part of an existing program, or an entirely new one? All non-military efforts previously had been placed under the National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics, which had been formed in 1915. This program was then strengthened, renamed, and expanded into the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, known as NASA. Other smaller organizations from the Army and Navy were also incorporated into the new agency. NASA became a civilian agency with no military applications, so that activities in space should be devoted to peaceful purposes for the benefit of all mankind. NASA's mission was to plan, direct, and conduct aeronautical and space activities. The program was expected to do a wide variety of activities and exploration, such as conduct scientific data of the solar system, gather weather data, and provide communications. President Dwight D. Eisenhower was very involved in the early stages of NASA. He had wanted the agency to be placed under the Department of Defense because he said that America couldn't pour unlimited funds into these costly projects where there was nothing of early value to the nation's security. The president held the power to choose an administrator to head NASA, so the agency would report directly to him, and was a required position on the National Aeronautics and Space Council. The council also included the administrator, the secretaries of state and defense, and the head of the Atomic Energy Commission, and could include no more than 9 members. It had been created in response to Lyndon Johnson's complaint of a lack of a central policy-making body. Despite presidential involvement, NASA remained free from partisanship. NASA's satellites had immediate effects. They sent back data from the Moon and Earth's upper atmosphere. The satellite Echo was put into orbit and used to bounce radio waves for real-time global communication. Intelsat, an international communications satellite system, was formed in 1965. The risks involved in space travel and the use of new technology also culminated in 23 total deaths, most notably the crews of Apollo 1 in 1967, Space Shuttle Challenger in 1986, and Space Shuttle Columbia in 2003. The unified effort of NASA provided the competition with the Soviet Union that the smaller, privately owned space programs without public or government support could not. That competition became the space race, which ended with NASA sending men to the moon, which would not have been possible for the United States without the popular and government-funded space agency. NASA was also a unifying force for America during the troubled times of civil rights issues, the Cold War, communism, and the Vietnam War. NASA's effects can still be felt today. Because of the exploitation of space-based technologies for practical applications, the number of telephone circuits has jumped from 500 to thousands. Satellite images for weather and live television coverage from anywhere in the world have become common. Navigation satellites became more widespread, eventually developing into the Global Positioning System, the modern GPS. NASA has made an enormous contribution to science. The Hubble telescope, launched in April 1990, allowed scientists to view galaxies billions of light-years away, and planetary probes have been sent to all the planets to map their surfaces and record atmospheric conditions, adding to man's knowledge of the universe. Weather satellites showed a depletion in the ozone layer, which led to U.S. legislation banning the use of certain chemicals that would further deplete it, and increased environmental awareness. Of USA Today magazine's list of top 25 scientific breakthroughs, published in August 2007, NASA was responsible for 8. NASA's societal impact can be seen in the space agency's annual publication, Spin-Off, published since 1976, which details NASA technology applied to everyday uses, such as memory or temper foam, improved artificial limbs, and firefighting equipment. NASA says Spin-Off accomplishes its goals as a convincing justification for the continued expenditure of NASA funds. It serves as a tool to educate the media and general public by informing them about the benefits and dispelling the myth of wasted taxpayer dollars. It reinforces interest in space exploration. It demonstrates the possibility to apply aerospace technology in different environments. It highlights the ingenuity of American inventors, entrepreneurs, and application engineers, and the willingness of a government agency to assist them. And finally, it continues to ensure global competitiveness and technological leadership by the United States.